Leo, do you have a crush on me? My ice queen roommate, Chloe Davis, suddenly decided to call me out. Me, the gutless wonder who'd been secretly in love with her for 8 years. I literally did a spit take on the spot. I thought I was dead meat, but she completely misinterpreted my reaction. Fine, forget I asked. She turned and went back to her room. The Cold War began. It wasn't until my best friend set me straight. You're such a dumbass. She was giving you an opening. The light bulb went on. That night, I kicked open her door. Chloe Davis, you listen to me. Dude, you sure this place is legit? My name is Leo Walker, and I was currently dragging 2 suitcases bigger than me up the stairs of a rundown apartment building, gasping for air. My best friend, Mason, was leaning against the wall, eyeing the peeling paint with suspicion. The broker swore it was a gut renovation, said the roommate was a quiet, beautiful girl. Most importantly, it's cheap. I braced my hands on my knees, feeling like my lungs were about to stage a walkout. $1,500 a month in this part of Chicago? Where else are you going to find a deal like that? A quiet, beautiful girl? Mason snorted. In a dump like this? It's probably some hairy dude catfishing you. Seriously, man, watch your back. Don't get scammed, and then help the guy count your money. I didn't have the energy to argue. I pulled out my keys and stuck one in the lock of apartment 602. With a click, the door opened. A light, clean scent like gardenias wafted out, a stark contrast to the musty smell of the hallway. The living room was spotless. A beige sofa, a natural wood coffee table, floors so clean you could see your reflection. Holy crap, it actually is renovated, Mason whistled in surprise. Looks like you hit the jackpot, buddy. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. For once, the broker hadn't been lying. Just then, a bedroom door opened. A girl in a white sundress with waist-length hair walked out. Her skin was fair, her features so delicate she looked like she'd stepped out of a painting. But it was her eyes that held you, cool and clear, with a hint of distance when she looked at you. Mason and I both froze. Damn, the broker wasn't kidding. She was a stone-cold knockout. The beauty's gaze swept over us, finally landing on the keys in my hand. Her brow furrowed slightly. Can I help you? I quickly managed what I hoped was my most charming smile. Hi, I'm a new tenant, Leo Walker. When she heard my name, a flicker of surprise, almost imperceptible, crossed her beautiful eyes before her cool mask slipped back into place. She looked me up and down, the way you'd inspect a piece of furniture you weren't sure about. Finally, her lips parted, and she uttered a single name. Chloe Davis. Boom, my brain short-circuited. Chloe Davis. The name was a lightning bolt, splitting open years of buried memories. High school. The girl who sat in front of me, always with a high ponytail, her back ramrod straight. The girl who aced every test, but always wore a don't mess with me expression. The girl I'd had a crushing, silent crush on for 3 years. The one I never even worked up the nerve to speak to before graduation. What was she doing here? Leo? Earth to Leo. Mason nudged me with his elbow, snapping me out of my trance. I felt my face flush hot. You're Chloe Davis from Northwood High. I stammered. Chloe leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, chin tilted slightly. A playful glint entered her eyes. What surprised? Surprised was an understatement. This was a full-blown shock to the system. I never dreamed that, after all these years, we'd meet again like this. And she was going to be my roommate. God, was this some kind of cosmic joke? No, not surprised. Small world, huh? Heh. I laughed weakly, feeling like a complete idiot. Mason, ever the opportunist, immediately switched on the charm. Well, what do you know? An old classmate of Leo's. What a coincidence. Leo, you jerk holding out on me. You never told me you knew such a beautiful classmate. Chloe didn't even spare him a glance. Her eyes were still locked on me, her tone cool. Since you're moving in, let's lay down some ground rules. Huh? Oh, okay. Go ahead. I snapped to attention like a private waiting for orders. First, we alternate cleaning the common areas. If I find so much as a speck of dust on your week, you're out. Second, don't bring strangers home, especially women. As she said this, her eyes darted toward Mason. Mason rubbed his nose, looking utterly innocent. Third, she paused, her tone sharpening. And this is the most important one. She took a step forward, the gardenia scent growing stronger. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. I heard her say, in that cool, clear voice laced with a warning, do not, under any circumstances, get any ideas about me. With that, she turned, walked back in her room, and shut the door with a firm thump, leaving Mason and me staring at each other. After a long moment, Mason leaned in, his voice a low whisper. Dude, I've got a bad feeling about this. Your life here is not going to be easy. I managed a bitter smile. Easy was the last word for it. This was like throwing a bunny into a lioness's den. Staring at the closed door, my mind was a mess of conflicting emotions. Was this a second chance from the universe, or just the beginning of a longer, more hopeless torture? After helping me haul my bags into my room, Mason made an excuse and bolted. On his way out, he clapped me on the shoulder. Bro, I'm telling you, that girl is into you. I nearly coughed up a lung. Where are you getting that from? She looked like she wanted to eat me alive. You don't get it, Mason said, waggling his eyebrows like some kind of love guru. Women always say the opposite of what they mean. The more she warns you not to get any ideas, the more she's secretly afraid you will get ideas about her. You know what that is? It's the ultimate power play. I didn't have the energy for his twisted logic and pushed him out the door. The room was small but clean. A bed, a closet, a desk. That was it. I spent the next hour unpacking, hanging up my clothes until I was sweating and my stomach started to growl. I realized then that all I'd had to eat since morning was a granola bar. I tiptoed out of my room. The living room was silent. Chloe's door was shut tight. I had no idea what she was doing in there. I slipped into the kitchen and opened the fridge. It was completely empty except for a few bottles of water and a lone carton of eggs. Great. Looks like Her Highness doesn't cook either. I sighed, pulling out my phone to order some takeout. Just as I unlocked the screen, a text message popped up. It was from Chloe, sent 3 minutes ago. There are eggs and ramen in the pantry. Make enough for 2. I don't like green onions. She'd even added a little smiley face emoji. I stared at the message, stunned. The tone, the sheer audacity of the command. How did she even know I could cook? And was she already treating me like her personal chef? I was a little annoyed, but then I thought, we're roommates. We have to see each other every day. Making things awkward wouldn't be good. Besides, the thought of making a meal for her didn't sound so bad. There was again that pathetic little crush rearing its head. Fine, I'll do it, I muttered, psyching myself up before starting my mission, rummaging through the kitchen cabinets. She was right. There was a package of ramen noodles in the back. I boiled the water, cooked the noodles, and fried 2 eggs. I specifically remembered she didn't like runny yolks in high school, so I cooked them all the way through. 15 minutes later, 2 steaming bowls of ramen with fried eggs were ready. I carried them out to the living room and knocked on her door. Chloe, food's ready. The door creaked open. She changed into a set of pink pajamas with little bunnies on them, her long hair draped over her shoulders. Without makeup, her face looked less intimidating, softer, with a kind of homey laziness to it. She glanced at the bowls on the table, then back at me, said nothing, and walked over to sit down. I placed the other bowl across from her and sat down myself. The atmosphere was a little awkward, filled only with the sound of us slurping our noodles. I snuck a peek at her from the corner of my eye. She ate delicately, taking small, neat bites. Not like me, inhaling my food like it was my last meal. She must have felt my gaze because she suddenly looked up, her cool eyes meeting mine. My heart jumped. I quickly looked down, pretending to be engrossed in my ramen. The ramen's not bad, she said out of the blue. Huh? Oh, it's okay. Just something I threw together. I was secretly thrilled but tried to sound humble. She put down her chopsticks, wiped her mouth with a napkin, and then studied me like a detective interrogating a suspect. Leo, yeah, you seem scared of me. No, I'm not. Elite. Oomph. She let out a soft snort, the corner of her mouth twitching into a half-smile. Back in high school, you used to take the long way around just to avoid me. Now we live together, and you can barely string a sentence together. So fess up. Did you do something to wrong me? My heart skipped a beat. God is my witness. I'd never dare do anything to wrong her. The only bad thing I'd ever done that involved her was writing her name over 300 times in my journal. Definitely not, I said, raising my hand as if taking an oath. I'm just kind of an introvert. An introvert? She raised an eyebrow. As I recall, you were pretty loud on the basketball court. My face burned. She actually remembered that. Sophomore year, during the class basketball tournament, I'd sunk a buzzer beater to win the game. In the heat of the moment, I'd definitely been jumping around and screaming with my teammates. I never thought she'd have noticed. Seeing my embarrassment seemed to please her. She took a sip of water, then casually dropped a bombshell. All right, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Leo, since we're living together, we need to get a few things straight. She put down her glass, her expression turning serious. This is just a roommate situation, a convenient way to save on rent. You are not to have any unrealistic fantasies about me. She paused, enunciating each word with perfect clarity. To put it simply, the first and only rule of this arrangement is this: don't fall in love with me. Don't fall in love with me. The words echoed in my head like a curse all night long. I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I had to laugh. Lady, you're about 8 years too late with that rule. If I could control it, I would have shut it down a long time ago. The next day was Saturday, so I didn't have work. I'd planned to sleep in, but I was woken up early by a series of loud bangs from the living room. I stumbled out of my room, hair sticking up in every direction, to see Chloe, dressed in workout clothes, wrestling with a giant cardboard box. It looked like a bookshelf. "What are you doing?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. She glanced back at me, a fine sheen of sweat on her forehead, her cheeks flushed. She looked less like an ice queen and more alive. "What does it look like?" "I'm assembling a bookshelf," she said, annoyed. I looked at the pile of complicated parts and the instruction manual that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. My head started to ache. "You sure you can handle that?" "A man should never say he can't," she blurted out, then realized what she'd said. Her cheeks turned an even deeper shade of red as she glared at me. "None of your business, right?" I'd managed to piss off the queen again. I didn't dare say another word, shuffling off to the bathroom before making myself a bowl of instant noodles. By the time I'd finished eating, she was still fighting a losing battle with the pile of parts. The bookshelf was nowhere near taking shape. I couldn't watch anymore. I walked over and took the instruction manual from her hand. "Let me." She froze for a second, probably surprised I was offering to help. "Who asked for your help?" she said, her voice stubborn. Fine, fine. You're the expert. You carry on." I handed the manual back and started to walk away. "Stop," she called out from behind me. I paused and looked back. She was biting her lip, looking reluctant, but she held out the screwdriver she was holding. "Here," she muttered. "I'll give you a chance to make yourself useful." I hid a smile, took the tools, and started studying the instructions. It wasn't actually that hard, just a lot of parts and a bit time-consuming. I had her hold the boards for me and hand me screws. Though she wore an expression that screamed, "Her Majesty is not pleased to be doing manual labor," she did exactly as I asked. The two of us, one doing the work, the other supervising, filled the living room with the sounds of clanking and banging all morning. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the side of her slightly flushed face, her long eyelashes like tiny brushes. I lost myself for a moment. The feeling, it was strange. It was as if we weren't just roommates, but a normal couple. "What are you staring at? Is there something on my face?" she asked suddenly, shattering my daydream. "No, nothing." I quickly looked away, focusing on tightening a screw. By the time the bookshelf was finished, it was already noon. My back was aching, and I collapsed onto the sofa. She stood before the new white bookshelf, her eyes shining with an undisguised joy. "It's all right, I guess," she said, trying to sound nonchalant, but the smile playing on her lips gave her away. "What's for lunch?" I asked. "Let's get takeout. Her Majesty is in a good mood today, my treat." She pulled out her phone, giving me a look that said, "You should be on your knees thanking me." I just smiled and didn't argue. Seeing her happy was better than anything. That evening, I just finished a shower and was heading back to my room in shorts and a tank top when I noticed Chloe's door was ajar. I could hear a muffled cough from inside. I hesitated for a moment before walking over and knocking. "Chloe, you okay?" No answer. I knocked again. "I'm coming in." I gently pushed the door open. The only light in the room was a dim lamp on her nightstand. Chloe was curled up under the covers, her face flushed red and her lips pale. A knot of worry tightened in my chest. I rushed over and placed a hand on her forehead. She was burning up. "You have a fever." She blearily opened her eyes and looked at me, her voice raspy. "I'm fine. Just a little cold." "You call this fine?" I snapped. "Do you have any medicine?" She shook her head. Without a second thought, I turned and headed for the door. "Stay put. I'll go buy you some." It was drizzling outside, and I didn't even grab an umbrella as I sprinted out into the night. By the time I returned, out of breath with a bag containing fever reducer and a thermometer, I was soaked to the bone. I took her temperature first. 102.5. I poured a glass of lukewarm water, helped her sit up, and gave her the medicine. She must have been delirious from the fever because she was unusually docile, leaning against me and whimpering softly. I put a cool washcloth on her forehead, tucked her in, and was about to leave. Just as I stood up, she grabbed my wrist. Her hand was hot, but her grip was weak. "Don't go," she whispered, her eyes still closed, as if talking in her sleep. My heart stuttered. On some strange impulse, I sat back down on the edge of the bed. I stayed there with her all night. Just before dawn, her fever finally started to break. Looking at her peaceful, sleeping face, I felt something I couldn't quite name. It was a mix of ache and softness and sweetness. By the time she woke up the next day, I had already made breakfast. She sat at the table, silently sipping her oatmeal, not saying a word. After she finished, she spoke abruptly. "Last night. Thank you." It was the first time she'd ever thanked me so sincerely. I scratched my head, a little embarrassed. It was nothing. Of course I'd help. She looked at me, her expression complicated, as if she wanted to say something else. Just when I thought she was about to have a warm, tender moment, her demeanor shifted back to her usual queenly self. Don't think that just because you took care of me once, I'm going to see you any differently. We'll just call last night payment for you putting together the bookshelf. She paused, adding, we're even now. With that, she went back to her room. I watched her go, a helpless smile on my face. Fine, even it is. But some debts, the more you try to pay them off, the deeper you get. That night, I got out of the shower and was heading to my room. When I opened my door, I found Chloe standing right outside, arms crossed, looking at me sternly. She was wearing a black silk slip dress that made her skin look even paler, her long, straight legs on full display. My brain went into overdrive. I instinctively took a step back, nearly tripping over the door jamb. What are you doing? I stammered. She didn't answer my question. Instead, her eyes traveled up and down my body, finally settling on my bare chest, her frown deepening. Leo, yeah, you. She took a step closer, cornering me, her cool eyes filled with an undeniable command. Put a shirt on. Looking at Chloe's, you're offending public decency expression, I glanced down at my basketball shorts and bare chest. Isn't this what guys normally wear around the house in the summer? Seriously? It's like 90 degrees out. I'm in my own apartment. What's wrong with being shirtless? I was a little baffled. Your apartment? She raised an eyebrow. Is your name on the deed? This is our apartment. She put a special emphasis on the word our. My heart did a little flip, but I kept up the banter. Fine, our apartment. So, Your Majesty, what's the deal with you blocking my doorway in a silk nightie in the middle of the night? Aren't you worried I'll get ideas? I was deliberately mimicking her earlier tone, trying to tease her. I didn't expect a blush to creep up her cheeks, her eyes darting away for a split second before she regained her composure. What I wear is my business, she said, full of self-righteousness. But a grown man parading around half-naked in the common area is an eyesore. There's only two of us here. Whose eyes am I offending? Yours. I countered. She was speechless, so she resorted to being unreasonable. I don't care. Right now, this instant, you are going to put on a shirt. Seeing her all puffed up and angry, I had to hide a grin. This was the first time I'd ever won a verbal sparring match with her. I deliberately sauntered back in my room, grabbed a t-shirt from my closet, and put it on. When I came back out, she was still standing there like a sentry. Happy now, Your Majesty? She huffed, finally getting back to the point. I'm hungry. And you're going to make me something to eat. She gave me a look that said, do I really have to spell it out for you? I glanced at the clock on the wall. The hour hand was already pointing to 11. Dude, it's almost midnight. A late-night snack? You'll gain weight. None of your business, she shot back. I had to work late. I didn't even eat dinner. The moment I heard she hadn't eaten, my desire to argue with her vanished, replaced by a pang of concern. Wait here. I trudged into the kitchen and opened the fridge. As usual, it was a barren wasteland. I turned back to her. There's nothing in the house. How am I supposed to cook? She thought for a moment. I think there's a 24-hour convenience store downstairs. Of course. I had to be the errand boy, too. I changed my clothes, grabbed my wallet, and headed downstairs. When I returned with a bag full of groceries, I found Chloe in the kitchen, keenly, studying the rice cooker. What are you doing? I asked warily. I'm helping, she said with an innocent look on her face. My suspicion grew. This princess, who wouldn't be caught dead doing manual labor, was going to help? Had hell frozen over. No, you just relax. I can handle it, I said, trying to gently guide her out of the kitchen. No. Her attitude was firm. I'm the one who's hungry, so I should be the one to cook. You can stand on the side and coach me. Looking at her eager expression, I had a very bad feeling. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, the kitchen was a war zone. Rice water was spilled all over the floor. On the cutting board lay several unevenly sized, strangely shaped chunks of potato, next to a pile of what looked like the massacred remains of a tomato. And our esteemed queen was standing there, spatula in hand, staring helplessly at a pan filled with half a bottle of oil. I rested my forehead in my hand, feeling my blood pressure rise. Chloe, have you ever cooked before in your life? Who says I haven't? She said defensively. I'm just a little rusty. Yeah, right? From the looks of it, she'd probably never even turned on a stove before. I sighed and took the spatula from her. Forget it, I'll do it. What do you want to eat? Scrambled. Eggs with tomatoes and hash browns, she said quietly. I looked at the mangled ingredients on the cutting board and fell silent. Half an hour later, 2 dishes and a pot of rice were on the table. One dish was a blackened, mushy substance in which it was nearly impossible to distinguish tomato from egg. The other was a plate of unevenly cut, half-raw potato sticks. Yes, these were Chloe's masterpieces. Over my strong objections, she had insisted on cooking herself, while I was relegated to the role of safety supervisor, which mostly involved telling her that hot oil splatters and she shouldn't stick her hand in it. She looked at me expectantly, like a first grader waiting for a gold star. Well, try it. I stared at the 2 plates of disaster cuisine, my stomach clenching in protest. With the resolve of a man walking to his own execution, I picked up a forkful of the scrambled eggs and tomatoes and put it in my mouth. An indescribable flavor, a mixture of salt, burnt char, and the raw taste of improperly mixed eggs, exploded on my tongue. I fought back the urge to spit it out and forced myself to swallow. How is it? Her big eyes were blinking at me. I felt my very soul preparing to leave my body. I looked at her, forced a smile that was more painful than a grimace, and gave her a thumbs up. Delicious. Really. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately piled another huge spoonful onto my plate. If you like it, have some more. I looked at the mountain in my bowl, and with tears in my eyes, silently shoveled rice into my mouth. This was, without a doubt, the most unforgettable meal of my entire life. Though the food was borderline inedible, seeing her so happy and satisfied, my heart felt, for some strange reason, a little sweet. After the disaster cuisine incident, Chloe seemed to have developed a passionate interest in cooking. And thus, my nightmare began. Every day, she would try to invent new dishes, looking up all sorts of tutorials online, and then using me as her guinea pig. There was the green pepper and beef stir-fry that was so salty it made my tongue numb, the pork rib soup that had no salt at all, and one time, she tried to make barbecue chicken wings but used a whole bottle of soy sauce instead of barbecue sauce. I still feel nauseous just thinking about the taste. But every single time, I had to lie through my teeth, telling her, "You're improving, and the flavor is very unique," all while silently weeping on the inside. What could I do? She was Chloe, and I was willing to do it. One day, I had to work late on a project at the office and didn't get home until almost 10. When I opened the door, the living room light was on, and there were several covered dishes on the dining table. I walked over and lifted the covers. It was a 3-course meal with soup. The presentation was still a bit messy, but it was a definite improvement. A warmth spread through my chest. I took out my phone and texted her. "Feeling domestic today?" I waited for a while, but she didn't reply. That was odd. I walked over to her door and knocked. "Chloe?" No sound from within. My stomach dropped as I remembered the last time she'd had a fever. Throwing caution to the wind, I turned the doorknob. Sure enough, history was repeating itself. She'd managed to burn herself up into a little furnace again, wrapped in her blankets and shivering. I was both annoyed and amused. How could this girl be so bad at taking care of herself? I went through the now familiar routine, found a first aid kit, took her temperature, gave her medicine, changed the washcloth on her forehead. She was delirious, muttering something under her breath. I leaned in closer to listen. "Stupid Leo. Tastes awful. Still says it's good. Liar." Hearing her mumbled words, my heart felt both sore and soft. So, she knew. She knew I was lying to her, that her cooking was terrible, but she still wanted to cook for me. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her flushed little face, and couldn't stop myself from reaching out and gently stroking her cheek. Her skin was hot and smooth. My heart skipped a beat. Just then, her eyes fluttered open. Those cool, clear eyes were now clouded with a layer of moisture from the fever, making her look wet-eyed and vulnerable, like a lost fawn. Our eyes met. The air in the room seemed to freeze. I snatched my hand back like a thief caught in the act. I was just checking if you still had a fever," I stammered. She didn't speak, just stared at me. The intensity of her gaze made my skin prickle. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice hoarse. "Water." "Oh, all right." Granted a reprieve, I scrambled to get her a glass of water. After drinking, she seemed a little better and leaned back against the headboard, watching me. "Leo." "Yeah." "Do you think?" "I'm useless." I was taken aback. "Why would you think that? I can't even cook. I just get sick and cause you trouble." Her voice was tinged with a vulnerability I'd never heard before. My heart ached for her. The queen who was always so high and mighty now looked like a child who'd done something wrong, so fragile it made you want to protect her. I pulled a chair over and sat by her bed. "No," I said softly. "Your cooking is delicious." "Liar." She turned her head away, refusing to look at me. "It's true," I said, looking at the side of her face, mustering up all my courage to say what was in my heart. "As long as you're the one who made it, no matter what it tastes like, I love it." Her body went slightly rigid. She didn't turn back, but I saw her ears turn a quiet, telltale shade of red. The room fell silent again, but the atmosphere was completely different. A subtle, unspoken intimacy was beginning to blossom in the air. I watched her, and she watched the window. After a long time, she whispered, so quietly it was almost to herself, but also to me, "Idiot." She was insulting me, but to my ears, it sounded sweeter than any love song. I couldn't help it. I smiled. The queen had fallen ill, and for me, this really did seem like an opportunity. A chance to get closer to her, no questions asked. The next few days, I lived the life of an emperor. No, wait, the life of a head eunuch. Chloe's sickness lingered, getting better then worse again. I ended up taking a few vacation days to stay home and wait on Her Majesty hand and foot. In the morning, I made her soup. For lunch, I prepare light, simple dishes. At night, I make sure she took her medicine and check her temperature. She must have been delirious, because she started ordering me around constantly. One minute she wanted water, the next she wanted an apple, and it had to be peeled and cut into small pieces. I did it all without complaint, happy to be of service. Seeing her let down all her guards around me, showing her true, demanding self, I felt only one thing: utter contentment. This afternoon, I was in the kitchen making her some chicken soup when the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands and went to open it. Standing at the door was a woman in a sharp business suit with perfect makeup. She looked to be around 30, with a confident, capable air about her. "Hello, I'm looking for Chloe," the woman said with a smile. "Oh, she's sick, resting. And you are?" "I'm a colleague of hers from work, and I was her senior in college. My name is Amanda Reed. She didn't come to work today, and she wasn't answering her phone. We were a little worried, so I came to check on her." "So, a colleague." I quickly invited her in. "Please come in. She has a fever. She just fell asleep." Amanda walked in, and her eyes fell on the lunch I'd just prepared on the table. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. "Did you make all this?" "Yeah, just threw something together," I said, scratching my head sheepishly. Amanda smiled, a new, more probing look in her eyes. "You must be Leo, then. I've heard Chloe mention you." She's mentioned me." My heart leaped. "She has," Amanda said, sitting down on the sofa across from me and elegantly crossing her legs. "She said her roommate was a very attentive domestic god." A domestic god. The title made my heart feel like it was coated in honey. Just then, Chloe's bedroom door opened. She emerged in her pajamas, hair a mess, looking sleepy and disoriented. "Leo, I'm thirsty." When she saw Amanda sitting in the living room, she snapped awake instantly, her eyes widening. "Hey, Amanda, what are you doing here?" "Came to check on you. Didn't want you burning to death in here all alone," Amanda teased. Chloe's face flushed crimson. She subconsciously tried to fix her messy pajamas and hair, looking utterly flustered and absolutely adorable. I'm fine. Just a little cold," she insisted. Amanda stood up, walked over, and felt her forehead. "A little cold? You're burning up. All right, stop pretending. Get back in bed." She herded Chloe back towards the bedroom, then turned to me. "Mr. Walker, thank you for taking care of her. I'll let the office know she's taking sick leave." "Of course," I nodded. Amanda chatted with Chloe for a few more minutes before leaving. After she was gone, the atmosphere in the living room became a little strange. Chloe sat on the sofa, hugging a throw pillow, her head down, not saying a word. I poured her a glass of water and handed it to her. "Here, drink this." She took the glass, her voice small. "Just now." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not bad-mouthing me in front of my senior." I smiled. "When have I ever bad-mouthed you?" She looked up at me, her gaze complicated. "Now, do you have a crush on me?" Puffed. The water I'd just taken a sip of went flying out of my mouth. Her sudden, direct question caught me completely off guard. My face turned the color of a ripe tomato, and my heart started hammering against my ribs like a drum solo. It's over, she found out. Is she going to kick me out now? My mind was a chaotic mess, and I stammered for a while without forming a single coherent sentence. Seeing my dumbstruck, deer-in-the-headlights expression, a shadow passed over Chloe's eyes. She suddenly let out a self-deprecating laugh and stood up. "Fine, forget I asked." She paused, her voice returning to its usual coolness, or maybe even colder than before. "Don't worry, I won't get the wrong idea. You're nice to me because we were classmates, and because you're a good person with a soft spot for people. I was the one reading too much into it." I wanted to explain, but I didn't know where to start. "Don't." She cut me off, her back to me, her shoulders trembling slightly. "I'm a little tired. I want to go back to sleep. I'm not hungry." With that, she went back to her room and closed the door with a heavy thud. I stood there, stunned, staring at the closed door. It's over. Now, there's a huge misunderstanding. For the next 2 days, Chloe and I were locked in a Cold War. Or, more accurately, she was giving me the silent treatment. She didn't leave her room, having all her meals delivered. The food I made for her sat on the table untouched until it went cold. If we happened to pass each other in the living room, she treated me like I was invisible, walking past without a glance. The tension in the apartment was suffocating. I was anxious and confused. Several times I almost knocked on her door to explain everything, but the words always died in my throat. I was scared. I was scared that if I confessed, I would lose even this fragile roommate relationship we had carefully maintained. This agonizing stalemate lasted until Monday. That evening, I got a call from Mason dragging me out. We ended up at our usual dive bar. "Damn, Leo, you look wrecked. Who's been keeping you up all night?" Mason exclaimed when he saw me. I shot him a weary glare and chugged half a beer. "Don't ask. I'm so stressed out." "What's wrong? Did you and your beautiful roommate have a fight?" Mason asked, leaning in conspiratorially. I sighed and told him everything that had happened over the last few days. When I finished, Mason was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at me as if I were the biggest idiot on the planet. "Leo, I always knew you were a bit of a wimp, but I never realized you were actually stupid." "What did you say?" "I said you're stupid." Mason jabbed a chicken wing at me, his voice full of frustration. "The girl literally handed it to you on a silver platter. Do you have a crush on me? That's what you call a softball question, my friend. A total gimme. And what did you do? You left the answer sheet blank." I panicked, okay?" I mumbled defensively. "Panic my ass." Mason slammed his hand on the table. "You're a coward. You're scared. You're scared she'll reject you. Scared you won't even be able to be friends. But have you ever stopped to think that the way things are now, you're no different from strangers?" His words were like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head, shocking me back to reality. He was right. What was I so afraid of, tiptoeing around like this? The worst-case scenario was that she'd kick me out, and I'd be back where I started. But if I did nothing, the distance between us would only grow. Seeing that he'd gotten through to me, Mason pressed his advantage. "Let me break it down for you. Why would a girl ask a guy, 'Do you have a crush on me?' There are only two possibilities. 1, she can't stand you and wants you to back off. But think about it. If she really couldn't stand you, would she eat the food you make? Would she depend on you when she's sick? Would she let you take care of her?" I shook my head. "Then, that only leaves the second possibility." Mason's eyes were shining. "She's interested in you. She might even like you back. When she asked you that question, she was giving you an opening. She was waiting for you to say yes. And what did you do? You coward. You completely fumbled it. She likes me back." I could feel my heart start to race again. Duh. Why else would she be so angry after you blew it? Why is she ignoring you? Because she's disappointed. She's hurt. Get it? I stared at Mason, feeling like a switch had been flipped in my brain. So, was that it? Her strange behavior wasn't because she hated me, but because she cared. "So, what do I do now?" I asked, clutching at him like a drowning man. Mason took a big swig of his beer and wiped his mouth like a seasoned pro. "Simple." He leaned in close, lowering his voice. "When you're dealing with a girl who's all proud and prickly, you can't play by the rules. You have to be bolder than her, more unreasonable. Remember these 4 words: go on the offensive." I hesitated, mulling over his terrible advice. "Are you sure? Won't that just make her hate me more?" "Trust me, it'll work," Mason guaranteed, thumping his chest. "Women love that stuff." That night, I walked home, Mason's 4 words ringing in my ears. Standing outside apartment 602, I took a deep breath. All right, if I go down, I go down swinging. It's better than this living death. "Leo, channel the same courage you had when you made that buzzer beater. It's just a confession. Go for it." With the heart of a soldier marching into battle, I opened the door. The living room was dark, except for a thin sliver of light from under Chloe's door. She was still awake. My heart began to pound erratically again. I took off my shoes and walked to her door. I raised my hand, but couldn't bring myself to knock. Mason's words echoed in my head. Go on the offensive. I clenched my jaw, screwed up my courage, and just turned the handle. Chloe was sitting cross-legged on her bed, a laptop in her lap, wearing headphones, probably watching a movie. The sound of the door opening made her jump. She looked up, startled. When she saw it was me, she froze for a second, then her expression hardened as she pulled off her headphones. "Who said you could come in without knocking?" "I need to talk to you." I ignored her question and walked straight to her bed. My aggressive approach clearly threw her off. She instinctively shrank back, eyeing me warily. "What is it?" I looked at her, took a deep breath, and then, under her astonished gaze, I snatched the bag of potato chips from her nightstand. "These are confiscated." What are you doing? And this, I reached out and took the can of soda next to her. Are you insane? She finally snapped out of it and tried to grab them back. I held the snacks high above her head, out of her reach, and said in a tone that brooked no argument, "You're still recovering? You're not allowed to eat this junk food. And look at the time. Why aren't you in bed?" She was completely stunned by my sudden domineering attitude. When I go to sleep is none of your business, she retorted, though she lacked conviction. If I don't make it my business, who will? I shot back. I'm your roommate. It's your duty to stay healthy, so you don't get me sick. I paused, looking at her pouting face, and deliberately softened my voice. Come on, be good. Go to sleep. With that, I took my spoils of war, turned, closed the door, and walked out, all in one smooth motion, leaving her staring after me in disbelief. Back in the living room, I leaned against her door, my heart still pounding like a drum. Thrilling. That was absolutely thrilling. More thrilling than sinking a buzzer beater. I don't know how long I stood there before my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. It was a single letter. K. I looked at the message and couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seemed like Mason's terrible advice might actually be working. The next morning, I woke up extra early to make chicken noodle soup and a fresh batch of pancakes. When Chloe came out, she still had a stony expression on her face, but the dark circles under her eyes were noticeably lighter. She sat down without a word and began to silently eat her soup. I didn't say anything either, just sat across from her, smiling. She grew uncomfortable under my stare and finally snapped. What are you looking at? You're beautiful, I said without thinking. The spoon in her hand clattered against the bowl, nearly spilling the soup. Her face, in a fascinatingly rapid progression, turned bright red all the way to the tips of her ears. You're such a smooth talker, she muttered, looking down, but her tone sounded more like she was pouting than scolding. I was ecstatic. So, this was the correct way to feed Sundara. You can't indulge her. You have to go against her. If she says east, you go west. If she says no, you insist. Of course, you had to get the balance right, so you didn't actually make her angry. Over the next few days, I fully committed to Mason's advice. If she was watching TV too late, I'd just unplug it. If she tried to sleep in on the weekend, I'd pull the covers off her. Any takeout she ordered that I deemed junk food was immediately intercepted by me. At first, she argued and fought with me, but slowly, she seemed to get used to it. Although she'd still say things like, Leo, are you crazy? Her actions showed she was growing more and more dependent on me. She started throwing her dirty clothes into the washing machine, along with mine. On nights when she worked late, she'd text me, Her Majesty is hungry. Return at once. When I was playing video games, she would quietly bring me a plate of cut fruit. Our relationship, in a strange love-hate dynamic, was heating up fast. It felt like we were standing on either side of a piece of paper, and all it would take was one little poke to break through. But neither of us made a move. Maybe we were both waiting for the right moment. Or maybe we were both just enjoying this unspoken, ambiguous dance. On the weekend, I was mopping the living room floor when the doorbell rang. Assuming it was a delivery, I opened it without a second thought. Standing in the doorway was a young man in a sharp suit, holding a huge bouquet of red roses. The guy was handsome enough, his hair slicked back with too much product, and he looked at me with an expression that was a mixture of appraisal and hostility. Who are you looking for? I asked. I'm here for Chloe Davis. Is she home? The man asked, his voice smooth and deep. My stomach dropped. He was looking for Chloe? With roses? Arrival. Before I could say anything, Chloe's voice came from her bedroom. Who is it? She walked out in her loungewear and slippers. When she saw the man at the door, her delicate brows knitted together instantly. Trevor? What are you doing here? The man, Trevor, immediately plastered a smile on his face when he saw Chloe and offered her the roses. Chloe, I heard you were living here, so I came to see you. Do you like them? Chloe didn't even glance at the flowers. Her tone was icy. Who told you to come here? And don't call me Chloe like that. We're not close. Trevor's smile froze on his face, but he quickly recovered. Chloe, don't be like that. Our families have known each other for years. My mom is always asking about you, saying we should spend more time together. He glanced at me in my apron holding a mop and asked, though he clearly knew the answer, And who is this? My roommate, Chloe said succinctly. Oh, a roommate. Trevor dragged out the word, his disdain obvious. Chloe, why are you living in a place like this? And with a man, no less. It's not safe. Listen to me, move out. I've already rented a luxury condo for you downtown. You can move in today. As he spoke, he reached out to grab Chloe's arm. I couldn't take it anymore. This asshole was trying to steal my girl right in front of me, and he had the nerve to say my home wasn't safe. I'd had enough. I threw the mop on the floor, stepped forward, and blocked Chloe, swatting Trevor's hand away. Listen, buddy, I said, a humorless smile on my face. First, whether it's safe here or not is none of your business. Second, whether Chloe lives here or not is not for you to decide. I paused, then wrapped my arm around Chloe's shoulders, pulling her into my side. She stiffened, clearly surprised by my move, and looked up at me with wide eyes. I looked down and gave her a look that said, "Don't worry, I've got this." Then I looked up, meeting the gaze of a now furious Trevor, and said, word by word, "Most importantly, she's my girlfriend. So please, stay away from her from now on." The air turned to ice. Trevor's jaw dropped, and he stared at us in disbelief. And Chloe, in my arms, was completely stunned. She just stared at me, her clear eyes filled with shock. I felt like my heart was about to leap out of my throat. I'd done it now. I'd overplayed my hand. Was Chloe going to slap me and tell me to pack my bags and get out? I was already calculating whether I'd be sleeping under a bridge tonight or crashing on Mason's couch. Just then Chloe, who had been silent this whole time, finally moved. She didn't push me away. She didn't yell at me. She just quietly, gently rested her head against my chest. Then, in a voice I had never heard before, laced with a hint of dependence and hurt, she said to Trevor, "You heard him. He's my boyfriend. So please, don't bother me again." Boom! Happiness hit me, so suddenly it felt like winning the lottery. I felt like I'd been struck by a giant, benevolent meteor. She admitted it? She admitted I was her boyfriend. I looked down at the top of her head nestled against me. So, overcome with emotion, I almost started crying on the spot. Trevor's face was a mask of fury. He shot me a death glare, as if he could kill me with his eyes. "Fine. Just fine," he seethed. "Chloe, you'll regret this." With that, he slammed the bouquet of roses onto the floor, turned, and stormed away. Bang! The security door slammed shut, and the world seemed to shrink, leaving just the two of us, and the deafening sound of our own heartbeats. After Trevor left, a strange silence fell over the living room. I still had my arm around Chloe's shoulder, maintaining my heroic pose, but inside I was terrified. She was still leaning against me, not moving. I could smell the faint scent of shampoo in her hair and feel her body trembling slightly. Had I been too impulsive? Was she just playing along to get rid of Trevor? Was she about to turn on me and kill me? The more I thought about it, the more scared I got. The hand on her shoulder started to feel stiff. Chloe, I began tentatively, trying to break this suffocating silence. She didn't speak, just nuzzled her head against my chest, like a kitten seeking comfort. The small gesture melted my heart, and all my anxiety and fear vanished instantly. I tightened my arm, holding her closer. After a long time, so long I thought she might have fallen asleep standing up, she finally spoke, her voice muffled against my shirt. "Lau. Yeah, I'm here. What you said before." She paused, her voice as quiet as a whisper. Was it true? Which part?" I asked, playing dumb. She punched my chest lightly, a blow with no force behind it that felt more like a caress. "The girlfriend part." I smiled. I pulled back slightly so I could see her, then cupped her face in my hands, making her look me in the eyes. With a seriousness and devotion I had never felt before, I told her, word by word, "Chloe, I'm in love with you. Not since today, and not since we became roommates. It started in high school, from the first time I saw you sitting in front of me, with the sunlight in your hair. So yes, every single word of what I said was true." Her eyes slowly began to fill with moisture. Those eyes, which were always so cool, so impatient, were now filled with starlight and tears. She bit her lip, trying to say something, but no words came out. Only tears stubbornly rolling down her cheeks. My heart clenched. "Hey, why are you crying? Did I say something wrong?" She shook her head, and through her tears, she punched my chest again. "Idiot, you're such a huge idiot. You're only telling me now. Why didn't you just wait until I was 80 to tell me?" She cried and scolded at the same time. Hearing her insults, I just smiled. I reached up and gently wiped the tears from her face. "I'm sorry I made you wait so long." She sniffled, looked at me, and suddenly a smile broke through her tears. "It wasn't that long," she said, sniffing again, a bit of her old queenly demeanor returning, though her eyes were still red. "Only 8 years." Seeing her looking so beautifully tragic, yet still trying to be tough, my heart completely melted. I couldn't hold back any longer. I lowered my head and kissed the lips I had dreamed about for countless nights. Her lips were soft and sweet, and a little salty from her tears. She was stiff at first, but then she began to awkwardly kiss me back. The kiss was long, So long it felt like it spanned the entire 8 years of youth we had missed. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Her face was as red as a ripe apple, her eyes hazy, unable to meet mine. I held her close, resting my chin on the top of her head, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment I had never known. So, I teased her. "Who am I to you now?" She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled. "My boyfriend." "What? I didn't hear you." "Boyfriend," she said, looking up and glaring at me, her cheeks puffed out. "Leo," she exclaimed, embarrassed and annoyed. "Are you trying to die?" I looked at her, all flustered and feisty, and burst out laughing, pulling her into a tight embrace. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Girlfriend." Sunlight poured through the window, warming us. I held my long-lost high school crush, my prickly queen, my girlfriend. I suddenly remembered what Mason had said. To deal with a girl like her, you had to go on the offensive. And he was right. But there was one crucial thing he'd left out. All your boldness and assertiveness had to be built on one foundation, that you truly, deeply loved her. "Hey, idiot," the girl in my arms said suddenly. I am hungry." "What do you want to eat?" "I'll make it. I don't want you to cook." Then she looked up, stood on her tiptoes, and pecked me lightly on the lips. Then she looked at me with those clear, bright eyes, now filled with a smile. "I want you."